All right. Good morning, Jarrad.
Good morning, Van.
How we feeling over in New York?
Feeling good, man. It's a beautiful day. It's about like 80 degrees today, so feeling good. Sun's out, guns out.
I don't know what's going on with the West Coast, but we are not getting that weather. I think we're finally getting punished for all the good years of good weather. We're getting like 1 year of bad weather, so I guess it's good for us. All right, everybody. We are back. Really excited to start a whole new slate of Leadership Masterclass call today. You guys are going to get to hear from Jarrad Nwameme, and his focus is going to be on recruiting. Now, before we get into recruiting, which this is a great subject, as you guys know, on these calls, and if you're new to this call, we cover really like 6 different subjects that pertain to leadership, and you guys get to hear from the best of the best in the industry currently on those specific subjects, right? And so it's really exciting because we have these regional conferences where we bring everybody together. We just had one in Southern California. There was about 1,000 people there. Incredible conference. You guys get to hear from and get to see interviews done by people of different backgrounds, struggles, sacrifices, challenges. But these calls are really focused on leadership topics, right? So that's why it's so important that you guys get on and you listen, because this is valuable information where we used to only do this, once every 3 or 4 months. Now you guys get it twice a month, right? Where it's a, really good in-depth impact on a specific subject. So we're really excited. Like I mentioned, regional conference just happened in SoCal. We have 2 more regional conferences coming up June 4th, one in Florida in Jacksonville. And then we got one in Chicago being ran by Larissa and Dana. And then we got the big Northeast conference June 11th. So we're pumped about all that stuff. Obviously right now we're going to do this call. Anybody that's on, message, group me, shoot emails out to other leaders in your office to hop on, because one bit of information could make the difference of you closing an interview today or this week or next week. So we want to be attentive. Jarrad, you got selected because, I was looking at your recruiting stats. Last week, you had the most new starts of any office on door to door. You had 16 scheduled and 16 showed. So, over the last 8 to 12 weeks, your office has been one of the most consistent at, people at second rounds coming in and then converting those second rounds into new starts, right? For you guys to know, Jarrad's got 6 offices currently, pushing for regional by the end of the year. Has another promotion going out June 1st. He works on FiOS, Inspire as a cross sell, and Ready Refresh, and recently got engaged. So I thought I'd throw that out there, Jarrad, because that's really exciting stuff. But Jarrad, we're really excited to talk about recruiting because I know you specialize in it.
All right. Appreciate it, Van. First thing first, obviously, thank you for having me on this call. Definitely an honor to speak amongst the newest leaders and leaders of our organization, and in the future owners as well. So yeah, for sure, man. Let's get right into it. So recruiting is huge in our office. We understand that it's the lifeline of our business, and we take it serious, all the way from the ad writers to the recruiters, to the first round interview, the second round interview, and also the third round interview. And we want to make sure that this process is streamlined all the way through. And everybody on this call is obviously on different stages. We got some level 1 leaders, level 2 leaders, account managers, junior directors, supervisors, whatever you guys call them. And the goal is to get really good at interviewing, because obviously that's going to allow you to play out your law of averages, but obviously it's going to allow you to build a team. But there is a difference. There's a difference between interviewing and recruiting. The interview obviously is going to allow you to get your team, but recruiting is going to allow you to kind of hand select specific people that you're looking for and also find your business partners. So the first thing first, take pride when getting an interview, knowing that your manager and your management team spent X amount of money on this interview. So think about also the time it takes for this interview to get through the recruiting funnel. The admin had to talk to them, the manager had to do the first round, and then it wound up being with you, the leader. So take pride knowing that you were one of the few people in the office that day that got a chance to do an interview. So I think, taking the interview with a sense of pride, that's the first thing. Also starts with your etiquette, right? Have this little etiquette checklist that you have going into every single interview, whether you're doing it on Zoom, in person, or in the field. First, be early. Being early shows that you're prepared. It shows that that you're ready to take on this next task. Obviously, having resumes printed out so you can kind of see and kind of identify some commonalities. You get to see where they went to school. You get to see their work experience. So you can really just assess it, right? Also, look at the notes. If you have access to applicant stream, because maybe you're a leader that's doing first round interviews, look at the notes that the admin wrote. Look at the notes that the manager wrote for this candidate. Get the notes from the person that did that first round interview, so you're just more prepared. Understand the reason why you're probably being matched up with this person, right? Maybe because of his personality or some common interest. And also, just you being early allows you just to have clear thoughts, right? It sucks rushing and scrambling, getting right into an interview and then trying to be as professional as possible. So coming in early is going to allow you to have clear thoughts going into this interview, so you can be 100% all in. Obviously, presenting yourself professionally. I think that's kind of self-explanatory, making sure you're outdressed in the interview. If you're doing it on Zoom, making sure you have the right ambiance and aesthetics. You have the right lighting as well. And also, if you're doing it in the office, making sure that the desk is clear, there's no mess in the room. And obviously, if you're in the field, just making sure you look the part, man. Making sure you look like a field supervisor, right, and an area manager. And last, set the expectations. What to expect on this interview. Who are you? What are you doing? And why are you here? Right? Who are you? Hey, my name is Jarrad. I'm one of the account managers here at Cross Sound Solutions. What are you doing? My job is to conduct the second round interview. Right? We sit down with about 100 people a week. We only bring back the top 20%. Right? So it's my job to give you my best recommendation. So I'm looking for 4 things. I'm looking for a great work ethic, student mentality, professionalism, great attitude. If you check all 4 boxes, I'll give my best recommendation. That right there sets the tone and sets the expectation. And last, I call it the 3 C's, right? Speaking clear, concise, and confident. So those are just the little checklist things that going into any interview, you want to make sure that you're doing. Now, going into the next slide.
One sec, Jarrad.
Yep.
So, really good advice with all the stuff he's got covered here. One of the things that, I think's been falling off a little bit in our business because recruiting has been at such a high volume. You see it happen where offices have 10, 12, 15 second rounds booked. It just gets sloppy, right? Where, the interviews are stacking up in the lobby, managers are walking around handing out resumes to people. It's all frantic. It's all chaotic. And then the next thing I'm interviewing Jarrad and I know nothing about him. I have his resume, but I really don't know a lot about him, right? And the other thing is I have his resume. I don't know a lot about him, but I also don't have a person in the business in mind that I can reference, right? That I can already bring up that has a similar background to Jarrad, right? So you heard Jarrad mention the resumes and then having an understanding of the person. This is hugely important, right? I remember when I would come back from the field, my manager would say to me, "Hey, I have an interview for you tomorrow that I'm really excited about. Here's the background of this person. You're going to love him." He was hyping up my interviews the next day, right? And I really strongly recommend anybody that's on this call that's in leadership, if you're taking second rounds every day, which hopefully you are, you're not only getting the resume early in the morning. We don't know if they'll show, but you get it early. But there's also in-depth conversations like Jarrad said. Okay, what are they excited about? What are their red flags? What's their background? Who in the business could they relate to? And that's where you get that fountain of knowledge, where you have all these people in the business that have these types of backgrounds. And your manager should have a list of people that you guys all can reference in across our organization that would be similar to the person you're conducting an interview with, right? So all kind of important stuff, but I can't stress enough about how important that resume is, how important having conversations with your owner is, start date, mentality, red flags. You want to walk into that interview saying, "Hey, Jarrad, I actually heard a lot about you from my manager. I see you're from this country. I see you've done this with your background. That's really cool." This person's going to feel so much more special knowing that you actually had some thoughts and conversations before that versus, "So Jarrad, what'd you do before this?" Which happens a lot. And I think you guys have no idea how much that turns off people when they sit with you and you don't know anything about them. So anyways, Jarrad, I just want to hit that up.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that we're constantly working on in our office since we have an influx of recruiting. Some guys might have one interview or two interviews a day. So really, really good points. Next slide.
Elise, there we go.
All right. Cool. Now, the foundation. So the foundation is knowing how to interview, right? Being able to attract an interview, and I look at is being able to attract a large volume of different types of people, right? I love the quote, "Love the people you have until you have the people that you love." So you got to be able to attract a large groups of people. So first thing first, it starts with the structure. Every single office should have some type of script. And obviously every single leader should be able to memorize that script, because we all know from the field, the pitch, if you have a script, if it's memorized, it increases your law of averages, right? And also by having a script and having a structure, what it does, it allows you to be more genuine, right? Because you already have the foundation and the skeleton set. Now allows you to be more genuine, allows you to build CPR more. And you take it now a humanized approach. Also, just like in the field, you get to read someone's body language, right? When you want to pay attention to different wows in the interview. So we took this from Dana Iverson, where you want to identify the wows. And one of the wows you're going to get throughout the interview is the wow to the business model or the wow to our clients. And by you knowing the script and by you having it memorized and by you being able to say it verbatim, you're now get to read the person and see if they wow based off the business model or wow based off the client, all right? As well, stick to the point. Keep it short and simple. What's that's going to do? That's going to help build impulse so you can get that person to the buying line and obviously you can close them. And also it's going to be, the interview is also your ability to be able to explain the day-to-day. How well are you explaining the field, right? Whether you're going to the field, you're doing it on Zoom or you're in person, are you explaining the field the right way, right? Does a person know what we do on the day-to-day? Do they know what we do in the office? Why do we come to the office? And do they really understand the culture, right? Because most people obviously starting because of the culture. So do they actually know what the culture is based off of how well you're explaining it? And if you explain it the right way, and I love that a lot of offices have like a rebuttal sheet for interviews, but I look at it is if you explain the field the right way, if you explain the pay the right way, if you explain the opportunity the right way, you also eliminate less rebuttals, right? But always have rebuttals on deck. I love the saying, if you're always ready, you never got to get ready. So making sure you have the ammo just in case the person does give you some rebuttals. But the goal is, when it comes to interview, the goal is close on impulse, right? Close on excitement. Build that relationship. The relationship begins in the interview. So once you do start that person, the relationship's already built, and obviously have them have a better understanding of what we do. So that's a huge foundational point. And I think having this is something you can build off of, like knowing these basic things.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also important, like you said, if you're explaining it the right way. And we've done a lot of calls about this, but when we're talking about door to door, or we're talking about commissions, or we're talking about hours, really the main core things that people get scared of. If you're conducting the interview, your goal should be to talk about these things in a way where you're throwing yourself under the bus. You're telling them you are concerned about these things before they tell you they're concerned, right? So if I'm telling them, hey, I'm going to be honest with you, when I first heard this was door to door, it really kind of made me nervous because I'd never done it before. And, I was kind of intimidated by it. But then I went out in the field and I was with Jarrad, and we were representing Verizon. It was kind of like taking orders. It was a lot more simple than I thought it would be. My imagination was scarier than reality. The other thing I was intimidated by was performance pay, because I'd worked kind of hourly jobs before this. But then once again, when I was with my trainer, seeing how simple it was, it really gave me a lot of confidence, because I didn't really have that ability to understand it or be good at it when I first started. The other thing, and then I can go over each one of these, right? Hours, I can be like, honestly, when they first told me that Saturdays were a part of the training program, that also kind of turned me off, because I was used to doing stuff with my friends. But then I saw how fast, the manager got promoted. Before this, my manager was working in restaurants. 6 months later, he got promoted to management. My leader, the guy that trained me, before this, he was in construction. And so granted, they don't have tons of business experience, but they're managing and running this whole office. Now, of course, even though they don't have business experience, let's not get it twisted. They had to work really, really hard to move up that fast. So once I saw how fast they moved up, I wasn't as scared of those hours anymore, because for me, the most important thing when I was looking for a company was growth. And the fact that I could grow quickly, me putting in more time to grow faster, it made sense to me. So, these are the types of ways, as Jarrad's talking about, where if you're breaking it down and you're telling them, hey, I was nervous about door to door. Hey, commission scared me, right? Hey, the hours, I was kind of intimidated. But you're telling them before they tell you, you guys have no idea how many objections you're overturning before they even ever bring it up to you, right? Because now if they do bring it up to you, you're like, oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like, yeah, like I remember I was you. But sometimes leaders, Jarrad, they try to act like they always were used to it, right? They like get pissed at people for being nervous about commission. Like, oh my God, what? Why? Or you don't have good work ethic? Are you not self-motivated? It's like, shut up. You were also like that. You know what I mean? So the relatability factor is so huge in interviewing, and don't wait to be relatable after they give you objections, right? Assume that door to door might be intimidating for them, and assume that commission might be something they've never done before. Talk about the training, talk about how they're not thrown to the wolves, talk about how it's hands-on, talk about if they were to get the job, they'd be working with you and you take them out in the field if they were to get the job. Talk about how fast people are getting promoted because of the hours they're putting in, right? So anyways, Jarrad, it's just so important, right? That like you talk about explaining things, how you can overturn these objections before you ever get them. If you throw yourself under the bus, put your manager under the bus, and say, hey, we're just regular people, and here's where we are.
100%. And that's just being proactive versus reactive.
Exactly. And so many of us were scared of the objections. Like, no, of course, like these are the things that people have concerns about. And if you hit it on the head before they say it, then you'll be better off for it, right? So,
and even to mention that point, if you hit it on the head on the interview, you're gonna have less of those rejections, or you're gonna have less of those rejections and thoughts when they start, right? What's the point of doing all that work when they start, they're like, wait, is this door to door again? Or is this commission? Like, you don't want that in orientation. You don't want that when someone's training them. So if you can hit it on the head earlier, again, that person obviously understands what we do, and that person's going to be all in.
Exactly.
Cool. Next slide. All right, awesome. So this is actually my favorite part. It's recruiting. And when it comes to recruiting, is your business partners are to come through your ability to learn how to recruit and learn how to attract. I think recruiting actually starts with you. And I think we all know, we've probably heard of the movie/book, The Secret, and they talk about the law of attraction. Like attracts like. This law suggests that there's similar things that are attracted to one another. So it means that there are people tend to attract to people who are similar to them, right? I believe that you attract your success. A good exercise we do in my office when we like really getting to the thick of recruiting. So May recruiting, we did this in the beginning of the month, where we draw like a stick figure on the board, we put it on the whiteboard, and we say, all right, guys, this is your next leader on your team. This is your next business partner. What would be the ideal person, right, that you would want on your team? What are their characteristics and attributes you would want them to have? And guys just spitting out all these different attributes: professional, competitive, they're honest, they have a great work ethic, all these different attributes about this person. And we write down 10, 15, 20 different things. And then the next question I asked, I said, hey, do you exude these characteristics? And we say iron sharpens iron, but people sharpen people, right? So, hey, do I have these characteristics in order to be able to attract this type of person? And if you want a person like this on your team, you have to have these characteristics as well. And obviously, it's all a work in progress. But you want to start with a few and over time get better and better, because that's going to lead to you having that confidence, right? And the confidence is huge, guys. And I think the problem was with leaders when we were teaching our guys how to have the interview, we were like, hey, just have confidence. Like, no, that has to be developed. So like the little things that we teach you guys, 5 steps, 8 steps, like all those, the byproduct of that is going to be your results. So that confidence, because it really doesn't matter. Again, everyone has a different script, right? So it doesn't matter what you say, it's how you say it. So I think the first question you got to ask yourself is, did I earn this second round interview, right? Because if I earned it, if I went out there, worked the system that day, outworked everybody in my office, so I got the sharpest candidate, right? I'm going to take this serious because I might not get it again, right? So that's the first thing, right? That gives me confidence in itself, that I know that I outperformed everybody in my office and I got the best person possible. The second question you want to ask yourself is, am I requalifying for leadership every single week? When I talk about leadership in my second round, am I that example of someone that's actually doing it every single week? That's going to give me the confidence as well. Am I making money? Am I making money? Am I hitting my break even by going into Thursday? Am I also showing other people how to make money? Has, people I train, how they come out of training making $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,400, whatever your parameter is, right? And then last, am I building and developing people? And I would say the best, I remember going through the field, the best time, like I was every single week I was starting people, is because I was the example of the office. I was doing all those things. So it wasn't that I was a better interviewer. I just had more confidence because I was actually doing those things, right? And this business is all about self-reflection, guys. You have to self-eval yourself every single day. It's not a window, it's a mirror. And you constantly have to ask yourself, am I doing these things, right? So whatever script you're using, it's the confidence that comes with these qualities. And the people that are building the best teams are people that are doing these things every single day. So, and not just confidence in yourself. I think Van said it, being confident in the client that we work with, right? At the end of the day, they're the star of the show. It's not Crosstown Solutions. It's not you, it's the client. That's why we find success. Be confident that you're selling a quality product. Whatever program that you are, it is by far a quality product, right? It is superior amongst the competition. And also be confident in the systems that we work. Just like Van said, we don't throw you to the wolves. We have a system in place. This system's been around for years. We're not trying to have someone reinvent the wheel. We just want someone to spin it, right? And be confident in the way we do our marketing, right? Again, indirect marketing. They asked us to rework it. It's oversaturated, right? Direct marketing is the most effective approach. Go through the stats of our client, right? Why we're such a huge bottom line to the clients that we work with and whatever program that you're on. So just with those things, guys, you should be able to have the confidence knowing that, you have the backing, right? And guess what? People will be attracted to this confidence. Right? It's just going to hold weight of everything you say. They're going to feel it. And then when they start, again, because the training starts now. So if you're confident now, they're going to be confident in your ability to be able to, because you're basically taking care of their livelihood. They're going to be confident in your ability that you can be able to lead them. So confidence is huge.
The way I look at team building is kind of like, if you think about sports, right? When a player is a free agent, they're, of course they want to make money, they want to get a big contract, but they're trying to go to a place where they believe they're going to win, right? When you look at kids graduating high school that are top recruits, there's a lot of programs out there that are recruiting them, and they're thinking, well, man, I'd love to go to Alabama because they got a winning culture. Like, I know if I go there, I have the best chance to be successful for my long-term career, right? And if you think about, like, when people look for jobs, right, or look for companies, they're really looking for people. They're looking for people that they believe if they follow, they're going to be more successful. And for you guys as leaders, one of the things that helped me early on was, even when I was by myself, I looked at myself as a business. Even if I'm one leader by myself, I'm Van Incorporated. And my business right now is doing X amount of sales a week. My business right now has this type of attitude. My business right now has this type of intensity. So what would make people want to follow me? Like, what would make people that I hire want to be a part of my team, right? And you guys got to have that individual pride and competitiveness to where when people are coming in, looking at other jobs, they meet you. And it's not just because you're a cool person, you're someone that they believe if they follow, they're going to go places. And so what makes that happen? Well, you heard Jarrad talk about it. You've got to be someone who's the example. You've got to be someone that pushes yourself to be someone where when they start, your name is being talked about in front of the room. Like, you're in front of the room running impacts. You're being talked about as someone who's going to get promoted soon. But if you're a leader where no one ever talks about you and your performance is not recognized, who would be excited about following you? So we were at this conference, Jarrad, and someone asked me, hey, what motivated you to be so consistent in the field? That exact reason was I was desperate to make sure that people respected the performance that they were following, right? So if LeBron or somebody else recruits people, they know if they go to that person's team, they're going to get a certain level of performance, which is going to increase the odds of winning, and the respect will be there. If you guys are trying to build teams, but you don't have a performance level to what you do, not just the sales, but how you carry yourself. Do you dress professionally? How do you speak to other people in the office? Are you in front of the room taking notes? Are you someone that looks like you're going to become a manager? Or are you someone that kind of you stand in the back of the room, you're not engaged, you're kind of like in the office, but you're not into it? Even if someone starts, they're going to look at you and say, this person's going nowhere. Like, why would I be influenced by this person? I'm going to look past this person. So that's something everyone's got to think about when it comes to recruiting, because it doesn't just start or stop, I should say, when you interview someone and they start. It's a perpetual recruiting funnel. And you want people to look at you and want to follow you, because of, if they follow you, they're going to reach levels of success way higher than if they didn't follow you, right? So anyways, Jarrad, this is all really good stuff from a mentality standpoint on how to behave before and after you recruit people to influence your ability to recruit them.
100%, because you got to retain them.
For sure. And you have to have respect. Like, if no one respects you because you don't perform and you're not an example in the office, if you're just some dud that's in the back of the room and you show up late, you don't perform, you don't hit your goals, you don't go out Sundays, you don't take notes. I mean, no offense to you. I'd be like, hey, you're a nice person, but I'm not going to become successful by following you. So the pressure that you have to put on yourself to focus on your weaknesses and get better, that's big. And if you don't do that, then don't expect to build a big team. Just don't. You can do sales for a little bit and move on, but leaders in our business who become successful, they put the pressure on themselves to be the best example, knowing that that's more powerful than just the words they say to people, right? The example is more powerful than your words.
100%. Now, again, let's get into the thick of things when it comes to the recruiting. So what is your structure? Remember, when you're interviewing, you already have the structure, you have the script. Now I can really focus on building relationships, right? Now I want to tailor my interview based off the individual I'm sitting down with, because I took the time to read their resume, because I took the time to get with my manager now, and because I took the time to break down what they want. Now I'm connecting the dots. I found the common interest. They told me what they wanted in a company, and now I can get to the close part where I can connect the dots, right? So, that's pretty much the structure of it. Now the day-to-day. So just like we talked about earlier, right? If I explain the field, if I explain what we do, now I can really get into the thick of things, right? So talking about leadership development, this is huge, right? There's so many companies that don't focus on leadership development. There's so many tech companies that hire people and outsource people to come in to teach leadership development. We teach it here in our industry, right? Personal development. This is huge for people as well. So I talk about this as well because this attracts people, right? Assistant management, right? The fact that they're going to learn the back end of our business, the back end of business 101. And obviously, once someone gets to branch management, we talked about this a little bit earlier, talk down on management, talk down on the manager. Hey, Jarrad was just a college grad. He went to a big party school like West Virginia. He had no sales experience coming out of college. You probably have more experience than him, right? But, he took this opportunity because of the systems that we have, because of the clients that we have, he's been able to get into a managerial role, right? So, and then last, obviously, just like I said, connecting the dots, you already found out what they want, what are they looking for in the new company? How can they use this business as a vehicle for them to hit those goals? So why management? Connecting those dots. So, and obviously it starts with us. With that confidence, I want to share my goals. I want to share what attracted me to this business and my vision. And that's what's going to attract them to you. And then obviously attract you to them. So the whole goal of this recruiting process is being able to relate to them, have them buy into the systems and the clients. And obviously the training begins now. Again, Van talked about the mentality. It is not you just getting someone in the door. You want this person to identify, hey, I want to follow this person. I want this person to be in control of, my destiny. I want this person to be able to help me in the future, right? So it begins now, because this is just a big critical conversation, right? And allows you to also, they get to have a peek of the type of coach and trainer you're going to be to them, right? I know I'm going to be successful in this person's hands. Some good tips, great C factors, right? Smiling, you're inviting. I know big things with leaders, for some reason, again, having those clear thoughts are important because they know they have maybe their new guy coming in, or they know they have a meeting with their team. So they try to rush through the interview. They think the faster the interview, the more efficient it's going to be. And it's actually the opposite, right? You want to slow down. You want them to understand what you're saying. You want them to hear it. So also it eliminates it sounding like a pitch, right? So they should feel like this is going to be the right person for them, right? And everything is just making it sense. Like they're having multiple click factors during this interview, right? And you're basically speaking their language. And then last is challenging versus challenging questions versus qualifying questions, right? So an example, I want to also give a qualifying question, right? When I'm recruiting and I'm really talking to somebody that might be educated, or I know that might read, one good question I ask them is, hey, what book do you think is a book that everybody should read at some point in their life? And they'll tell me the book, and I'll ask them why, right? That's a challenging question. Why, right? How have you applied this book in your everyday life? So I want to get their thought process. I want to ask them questions like that, because again, I want to see if they speak our language. I want to see if they're, educating themselves as well. And again, that's going to help me. That's going to help either me create more leverage, or what they know, what they don't know. Again, we can just have basic conversations. So I think finding some commonality, it's almost like dating. If you can find some commonality and be able to kind of go off topic and have a separate conversation, again, that person's now continue to buy into you because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. So I think that's huge.
Yeah. Well, I look at, recruiting, in general, I think there's a structure that you talk about in terms of how we break down kind of what we're doing and why we're doing it, right? So if I'm a person applying and I answered an ad for, marketing, sales, entry level management, I'm going to need a breakdown of really what the sort of core fundamentals are of the business. And I think the thing that people really miss is explaining that this is about management, right? It's where, of course, like someone has to start off doing the sales, but I always tell people, hey, if you're coming in for a sales job, we're happy to have you. It's not that people, don't make money. And of course, if someone's just graduating and they're like, I just need money now, I'm going to tailor my pitch after I've said what we're looking for. But I always tell them what we're looking for. I don't say, here's this business. And then I kind of just say, well, hey, here's how much money you make. A lot of leaders put so much emphasis on the entry level. They talk so much about the field. They talk so much about leads. They break down customer interaction way too much. And then they talk a ton about leadership, and they act like the business is just about becoming a leader. And it's like, wait a second. No, you should be talking the most about management and not saying, hey, you're the owner and you're an entrepreneur and, here's all the profit margins. No, just saying, we're looking for people who can manage people. We only promote from within. So everyone starts entry level. There's no seniority or politics, which got me excited. But someone's got to learn and do the grunt work first. They got to be willing to roll their sleeves up, learn the product knowledge, learn the customer interactions. But we're looking in a very short period of time for someone to be able to move up into management where they can manage 10, 15, 20 people like my manager is. And there's people managing 40 or 50, right? Those are the 6-figure and up earners. There's even people making into the 7 figures running one office with promotions as well. So really the ultimate thing, the reason why we're doing these interviews is because we're not looking for someone to do sales as a long-term position. I see your last job, you worked there for 4 years, Jarrad. That's way too long for us. No one is in our entry-level training part of our business more than a year. The average is about 6 or 7 months. So if you're someone that wants to move up fast, that really is more suiting what we're looking for. Someone who wants growth, someone who's willing to work hard to do it. But like I said, if you are someone that wants just more of a sales position, we're happy to have you. We just tell people there's no long-term growth in that position. Does that make sense? So if I'm like positioning now, Jarrad might say to me, hey, I'm looking for a job. I need to make money. No problem. How much are you looking to make? Well, my last job, I got paid whatever, $800 bi-weekly. It was a part-time gig or whatever the number was, $1,000. They want to make 50K. Great. Our average person makes this much. The top people make this much, right? So that absolutely is a possibility. It for sure can happen as long as, you're willing to work hard. But I will just tell you, this is not a long-term sales position. So as long as this person knows this, now you guys might say, well, Van, what if by saying that, that person now doesn't want to do it because they are just looking for a job? Well, I think, maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't want to push those people away too hard, but I want them to know they can start, but I want them to know this is not a sales job long-term. Because if you guys focus too much on the field, you focus too much on just being a leader and then you're leading car rides and you're training people, people just eventually think that's the job, where you're not interviewing for that job. You're interviewing for people who can manage people. They just got to go through that first couple of phases to get to that position, right? So it's like a basic principle of what you're interviewing people for. And the more you get better at that, the better you get at presenting the business that way, the more people you'll have starting with more of a manager mentality. Like, I get it. And they're going to be able to see past the field sooner, as opposed to be thinking, this is my job, this is all I do. And then everything else you guys talk about, whether it's opportunity meetings or clients or anything, it makes more sense, right? Because people are the business is packaged to them in a way where that's what we're looking for, right? So I want to hit on that, Jarrad, just because I think sometimes people get so caught up in, all right, here's the field and here's what you do. And in leadership, you're going to learn all these things. And of course you will, but I tell people we're looking for managers. And if someone's turned off by that, I say, you can do sales here, but there's no long-term position in that. So anyways.
Yep. And that's perfect because that actually segues into my next point, right? Like, we're looking for management because of like real life facts, right? And having facts, one, you have more logical conversations and you have more leverage when making your points. So like looking up the unemployment rates right now, right? Looking up like since COVID and how many tech companies, how many finance companies, how many consulting companies have done all these layoffs, right? Knowing that information is huge, right? Knowing what the average college grad right now is making, right? So someone comes in, I need this amount. Well, this is what the average is, right? We just want someone to learn it right now to eventually get to a point where they're making double that, right? In a managerial role. Looking at the average income, there's an article that came out the other day, and I'm big on like Bloomberg News and Business Insider because I want to use these like real-time stats to be able to help, with the leverage, right? So there's this article that came out that says there's 90 million Americans right now that are struggling to pay basic expenses. Why? Because of cost of living, right? Because of inflation, right? There's another article that came out, what 100K feels like in your city. We're in New York, so we're actually the top of the list. So if someone makes 100K in New York, it's actually only making 35K with inflation, with cost of living, with all these things that obviously determine that, but it's only actually making 35K right now. So actually understanding that, right? Be able to explain that. What about millennials and Gen Zs, right? Majority of people that we're interviewing are millennials and Gen Zs. So this is actually the third, shift of the millennials that are about to turn 40. So right now, based off of the millennials that are about to turn 40, the millennials right now that are about to turn 40 are earning less than 20% than the baby boomers did, in their generation. So times are changing, guys, and you want to be in a position where you're not struggling, you're not living paycheck to paycheck, right? And that's why management for me, that's why management was for Van, because again, we were realizing as we're going through, like, things are happening, right? And we're coming out of a time where the pandemic and all these things are changing. You want to be ahead of the curve, right? Looking at college grads, right now we're in the May recruiting season. Everyone in our offices are going to be recruiting college grads. I think everyone, I would admit, like, we're looking for that dream job, and right now it's not happening, right? Because just like I mentioned, a lot of companies are doing layoffs. Nobody's really doing mass hiring, right? And there's an article that says, suggesting people to, look beyond the big name companies because they're just not hiring, right? It's a smaller pool of people, so look past those people, right? And also, what else is out there, right? I love people that actually work a little bit, get their ass kicked, because they kind of know what to expect going into their next role, right? They kind of have a sense of, all right, this is what I don't want, and this is what I want, right? So talk about what else is out there. If you've worked at another job, we all know that a lot of positions are seniority based. It's political. There's always glass ceilings. Know what the other marketing companies outside of our organization are, right? Like, what other marketing companies are out there. I know a lot of marketing companies outside of our organization is really more focused on sales than they focus on the leadership development, the management development. So talk about that. Talk about other industries, right? And also understanding, if you have somebody that's like, oh, well, I'm gonna just work a 9 to 5 and I'm gonna, run my own business. Educate that person. 87% of businesses fail in their first 18 months. This is why, right? Lack of capital, there's competition, and there's lack of management experience. Now, people in our business, the reason why people succeed in our business is the opposite, right? There's no upfront costs. It's a low overhead business, right? There's limited competition. We actually have the superior products in our field. And we actually give that person 6 to 10 months of training and development so they're confident when going into a managerial role. So if you give them these facts, guys, it's just going to give us more leverage, more credibility when speaking, because I think a lot of us, we try to sell the business, but we're not actually talking about business. We're not talking about like real life stats. We're not talking about things that are actually happening in the world. And that right there is going to give you the confidence knowing that, again, if you're speaking to the right person, again, they're going to understand it and you're going to be speaking their language. Now,
I was on oh, sorry, go ahead, Jarrad. My bad.
No, I was going to say, how can I be a better recruiter, right? Personal recruiting is one thing that I can obviously be a better recruiter through that, where I'm giving myself more opportunities to pitch the business or pitch to explain the business, right? If I'm in the field every single day, if I'm getting 30, 40, 60 talk tos, and I'm personal recruiting a couple people in the field, if I'm going out to eat, if I'm going to the mall, it's just more opportunities for me to explain the business, right? Now, if I'm personal recruiting, how are these personal recruits going through the funnel, right? Do I have a good relationship with my admin where she's putting my personal recruits in front of on the list, or he's putting them in front of the list? Am I getting the pitch from my admin where I'm actually booking these people myself? That's a good way to get good at recruiting, right? Am I learning from my manager the first round script so I can do these interviews myself, right? And if I'm pitching people, if I'm personal recruiting, if I'm doing the calls, if I'm doing the first rounds, again, my second round is going to be pristine. My second round is going to be stronger. And obviously I'm giving myself the best odds. So I think that's big, Ben. And, again, we can talk about all this stuff, but actually just knowing info, just being educated, giving yourself like some type of level of exposure. I love to say your level of exposure is going to lead you to your level of success. So if you expose yourself of what's going on right now, it's going to allow you to be successful, not just in our business, but again, be able to attract people because you just kind of know a little bit about a lot.
Yeah, I was shadowing, we did a call, I think it was with a couple owners. Richard was talking about how he does his prelim and, he's trained a lot of people, but with the way that those, a lot of his owners start off the prelim is like, hey, you guys probably know Amazon's laying off tens of thousands of people. Facebook laid off, 11,000 people. You just talk about the facts, right? You just talk about what's happening in society. Talk about how, there's a writer's strike. There's just so many things happening where unemployment's 3.5%, but people are switching jobs more than ever because there's no growth. Like if you say those things to people, it sinks in a little bit and everything you're talking about starts to make more sense. So you got to get educated outside of the bubble of our business. You can't just be like, oh, we have a great, model. wow, it's so good, direct versus indirect. You got it. And he, Jarrad talked about, Bloomberg and Yahoo News, and, have things that you're seeing happen in society and the economy that keep you educated. So you start to know a little bit about a lot. So when people come into for your interview, they bring up real estate. You kind of know, okay, what's the interest rate right now? Wow, the interest rate's, over 7%. That's crazy. That must be a big reason why real estate's suffering. Do you know what the interest rate is? Do you even know what I'm talking about? And if you don't, all good. But that's the type of stuff that when I was a leader in the field, I didn't know anything. I had to educate myself. So as opposed to going on social media and swiping through TikTok or Instagram, where your brain doesn't learn anything, go on some of these news sites, right? Start to learn about what's happening in the world. So when people come in, you're not like this sort of ignorant, excited juice monkey person that's like, I'm going to get to management. And this person just kind of looks at you and says, man, this person, they just seem brainwashed. They don't even seem like they have an education of the world around them, which, hey, brainwashing can be good if it's for someone teaching you good things. Like I want Nick Saban to brainwash me. I want Bill Belichick to brainwash me, but I've got to have the right intelligence on other things. Otherwise, I'm going to lose people because they just see that I'm not well-rounded, right? So Jarrad, this is all really good stuff. I think it's important. It's all like elements to the interview, regardless how you do it, that are fundamental, that'll help you recruit better.
100%. So Van asked me, hey, Jarrad, when you speak, make sure you give our leaders something that they can take, something that's tangible and we can use to be better recruiters. So I wrote down a list of exercises that we do in our office that I stole from people like Dana, people like Richard, that we do every single day. So these are some things that we can do to become better recruiters on the day-to-day, right? This is us, practicing with our left hand. This is us putting up free throws right now. So first thing first, mock interviews. Obviously, doing a mock interview with your leader, other leaders in the office, doing it with your manager, being shadowed, right? Getting a different perspective. Especially if you're doing on Zoom. I love Zoom too. If you do on Zoom, because you can record it, you can watch it over and over again. So, being shadowed, rebuttals, just like we talked about, if you explain the field the right way, if you explain what we do the right way, you don't have the rebuttals, but you still want to practice those rebuttals. So just list all the common rebuttals and just do rapid fire rebuttals, right? With your leaders. Parroting, right? Parroting and reading resumes. So this is an exercise that I actually took from Dana. I loved it. I went to her office and I seen her do it with her leaders, and it was gold, right? What parroting is, it's talking, taking what they say, repeating it back while sounding more articulate, right? So let's say someone says, hey, I want growth. So Van, it sounds like to me that you want upper mobility, a place where you can really sink your teeth in, and a place that has no cap, right? So again, you're kind of changing what they say, saying it back to them, and making it sound a little bit more articulate. And they should say, that's exactly what I'm looking for, right? That's how you know you parroted it the right way. So having that exercise, giving everybody like a resume, reading the resume, taking it back, and then parroting what this person wants, it's a great exercise that we use in our office today. Knowing your recruiting stats, right? Every leader here, it's almost like a baseball card, right? Every leader has stats. On the back of a baseball card, it has your batting average, it has the amount of home runs you hit, the amount of RBIs, and us as leaders have those same stats. We have obviously our production, our average paycheck, our piece average for our car rides, our piece average for our teams, and also our recruiting numbers. So every single week, we have to know our recruiting numbers, right? And on Mondays, before we do our leaders meetings, we go over, I point out all the leaders and I ask them, hey, what was your retention last week? Some leaders know, some leaders don't know. But the leaders that know, those are the leaders that are actually building the biggest teams. Because if they have 50%, for us, that is the baseline. That is the minimum we want someone to have. And if they have 50, we want to figure out if we can get that to 60, then get it to 70, then get it to 80. So knowing your stats, I think it's huge. And just having just like you have a production log, have a new start tracker or second round tracker as well. Practicing your interview checklist, right? Another thing we took from Dana, right? Another exercise you can do, Van talked about it, relating to that person, agreeing with that person, right? Talk about, hey, I was nervous when I first started. This is my first job out of college. I didn't, my mom told me to look for a position that had a salary, right? So I was really nervous to do performance-based, right? But this is what I learned. I learned there's a system in place. So being able to relate, that's one kind of check mark you want to have. Being able to talk down on the manager and yourself. Already talked about myself, right? Hey, Jarrad's a college grad. That's one check off, right? Hey, I had no experience either. I worked at Starbucks. That's another check, right? the clients a star, and obviously giving the stats. Talk about the client that you guys work with and the significance and what the impact it had on impact that we had on that client, right? And why the client hires us to do their sales, right? The average value of customer, right, that we have. Like the average value for, I know Verizon, it's, you know, a couple million, right? The average customer stays with Verizon for 36 months. We generated Verizon 1.6 billion in the past 5 years. That's why this is what we do is effective. Another check mark, right? Connecting the dots to management, right? So what are their goals? What management can do for them? We have to make sure we bring it back. So another check mark, right? And then last, obviously, the direct versus indirect. So those are like an interview checklist you can literally do. You can attach it to the rebuttals and making sure that person adds those things to those rebuttals. So that's a good exercise. Another thing, obviously, we talked about earlier, qualifying questions versus challenging questions. Just kind of go back and forth, asking a qualifying question and then following up with a challenging question. The easiest challenge question you can have is why, right? That's the easiest challenge question you can do. Why, right? Why do you think that's important? Or how did you apply what you just talked about in your day-to-day work experience, right? So, and then the last thing, and obviously shadow first round interviews so you can kind of see what the manager is saying. So you can see if it's consistent what you're saying, you're not repeating the same things. I know a lot of leaders sometimes repeat the same thing. So then the first round sounds repetitive. So making sure you're changing things up just a little bit so it doesn't sound so repetitive. And then last, utilizing feedback, right? We talked about this earlier, right? If you have access to applicant stream because you're doing first round interviews, where are the notes from the admin? What are they saying that they've related to for the person? What are the notes from the first round manager, right? What are the decline reasons? This is huge, right? Whatever reasons the decline reason, let's say someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I don't want the position anymore. That probably means you built a good relationship, but you didn't connect the dots with management, right? What if you call somebody, they were supposed to start, they just go ghost? Probably means you didn't build a good enough relationship with them, right? And they didn't respect you enough where they can even reach out to you. So looking at the decline reasons is going to be huge where you can make those minor adjustments. And then also providing your own feedback and evaluation. So I know a lot of leaders come in like, all right, cool, hire the guy. He's ready. He's excited, right? A lot of times that's just not enough, right? Give us more so we can tailor the third round for this person. And we do have like an eval that our leaders send to us that has like a couple questions that based off these questions, I can identify maybe where we're losing somebody at, right? So if you guys want to write this down, the eval that we have our leaders fill out, it says, how did the interview go? So I just want their interpretation of how the interview went, right? The second question I want to ask, I want to answer is, what questions did they have, right? So if someone says, oh, they had a question about the pay, right? All right, did we talk about the pay the right way, right? Did we explain commission the right way? Did we relate to them, right? So after they said it, then they still had a question, that might be a problem, right? So that's where we can actually make those fine tweaks. The third question is, what did we build a relationship on, right? I want to make sure our guys are connecting with them, right? We gave you all the notes already. There's a reason why you're sitting down with this person, because you guys have some type of common interest. So if on the eval, you tell us, hey, you didn't build a relationship on anything, that's odd because I thought you guys like to hike. I thought you were big into sports, right? So you being able to identify that, I think that's big. And what trouble did you have explaining? Like, what did you have trouble explaining, right? Because there might be things that someone asked that you might have trouble with. So we got to work on that with you. And then last, obviously, when can they start? If the applicant told me they can start as soon as possible, but after they sat down with you, they said 2 weeks, then something was lost within that interview. So I think that eval for us was a game changer because it allowed us to identify the things that our leaders were missing, and we can make those tweaks in the beginning of the week or the middle of the week versus waiting for the end of the week or end of the month, where now May recruiting's passes us by and we're not making these real lifetime adjustments. So that's pretty much it, Van. That's the exercises I have where leaders can really get better and again practice their game, practice outside of the game.
Yeah. Well, your results speak for themselves, Jarrad. There's nobody that I see on the recruiting tracker that has a higher conversion of scheduled second rounds to new start showing. And, we're all working on different things in our business. So everybody's got something they're working on. The next level is retention, which we're going to go over cycle development. Could be driving sales. It could be mentality. But right now, Jarrad, I mean, there's nobody that's better at preparing your leaders to get people to start and come in and fill out paperwork. And that's why you're on this call today. Really, really good information. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We'll answer one or two questions before we wrap up. Okay, how do you teach your guys to explain door-to-door and commission? How are you teaching them to explain it correctly? I think that's probably a networking call that Jarrad can do to go over that. So it might be too long. I know we covered sort of the basics today. And then this is one you might be able to answer. How do you explain why we come into the office? Like, what is that part of the business?
Yeah, that's easy. That's our practice before the game, right? That's where the development happens. Muhammad Ali said he didn't win his belts in the ring. He won it on the road. So that's that, right? That's us practicing. That's us getting better. That's our development. And that's what's going to allow us to obviously, not only, execute in the sales and obviously provide for our clients, but that's going to allow us to be able to expand and again, continue to be that bottom line for our clients.
Yeah, and I would just blame the client. I'm like, listen, our clients require that every day our reps are educated and trained before they go out and represent them. Promotions change all the time. And if reps, and I make it a rule, like if someone doesn't attend morning atmosphere, they don't get to go out and represent the clients I have. They just don't. And then I tell them this, I'm like, listen, what makes this different than just a sales job? Because if this were just a sales job, then you would get your territory, you'd give you a couple zip codes, you get your leads, you go out and sell. And that's all this would be. That's not what this is. Right? When someone comes in, our goal is not to just teach them how to sell. It's to teach them how to think more like a leader, learn recruiting skills, learn leadership ability. And so that morning time, not only the clients require it, because if reps go out and misrepresent them, that's a major problem. So we cover compliance every morning. We cover product knowledge every morning, but we're also teaching developing leaders and leadership development. So when someone comes in, that's what that morning time is for. And that's what makes this a management opportunity, not just a sales gig. So I tell people, hey, if someone's more interested in sales, I say the better career path is probably selling insurance, selling cars, getting into real estate, doing solar, because that's where you can make more money per sale. And that can be its own career. No one in our business is getting rich off of just doing sales. The people who are wealthy, the people who are making, well into the 6 figures, into the 7 figures, is because they become extremely good at teaching, training, and leading and managing a large amount of people. So ultimately, that's what the morning is for, is to help that development. Does that make sense? And is that something that could work for you? So I'll put them in. And then the other thing, guys, about the door-to-door commission, I know we kind of touched on it. Jarrad, it's kind of like, hey, here's, one of the ways that I teach my guys to break it down is I say, hey, here's how much the office gets. I say, this is what the office gets. Now, if you were running the business, how would you split that up between the office and the rep, right? So let's say the office is getting $180, right? Or whatever the number is. I'd go, Jarrad, here's how much the office gets. Verizon pays us for every customer we give them. Makes sense, right? If you were Verizon, I'm assuming you'd probably do the same thing, right? Or would you just pay us a flat rate even if we didn't give you any customers, right? What would you do? You'd be like, oh, I'd pay you for every customer. I'd be like, great, you're smart, so is Verizon. So Verizon pays us roughly, let's just say $180, right? So that number, how would you break that up? How much would need to stay at the office for expenses and for the managers and for HR and for all the overhead that goes into the business? And how much would be shared with the rep that signs up that customer? And they'll say, oh, I give, what percentage would you give? Oh, 20%. Oh, nice. Okay, cool. It's actually pretty generous compared to the rest of society. You look into real estate, it's 3%, 4%. Financial advising, it's 3%. Most places, cars, it's like even less. So here's what's cool about what we do. We split that where the rep is making close to 50% of the office profit per sale. So check it out. And I go, boom. And then I say the average rep is doing this many customers a week, getting paid on this many, and the average person's making anywhere from 40 to 50K. Our top people are making between 60 and 80, but essentially that's how it breaks down. And I tell people, hey, that's a really cool number, right? It sounds good to start off entry level. But here's what got me excited. Last week, my office did 130 apps. So if you do the math breakdown, here's how much the rep made. Well, here's how much the office made, right? So my manager, even though we split it up the way we did, and the reason why we split it up is because we want people to not have to be aggressive salespeople. We want people without sales experience to be able to be themselves, represent the client, and go talk to people. And trust me, Verizon wants the same thing. They do not want us to be aggressive or pushy. So that's not what this is. But what got me excited was when I did the math,
My manager, we did 130 sales last week. He's getting paid on about 100 of those, and he's making roughly 90. So 100 times 90, his profit was $9,000 before expenses last week. Now his expenses are around $3 or $4 grand. So on those 130 apps, he's clearing close to $5,000 or $6,000 in a week managing this office. So the entry level part was cool, but what really got me excited was what the manager was making. And remember, before this, Jarrad, he was just graduating college. Isn't that crazy? So that's how I break it down.
Love that. Fresh that.
All right, we really maxed this thing out, man. We went all the way to 9. I think we got everybody to stay on. We didn't lose a soul until I started ranting at the end, so that's probably my bad.
Yeah, you were
But
ripping, bro.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate everybody hopping on. Another great call, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, man.
Thanks, Jarrad.